My cousin Ruby and I had our babies on the same day. On the day of delivery, I saw Ruby secretly swap my daughter with hers right there in the hospital. I pretended not to notice and took her daughter home to raise. 18 years passed, and under my care, Ruby's daughter topped the college entrance exams. Meanwhile, my own daughter suffered constant abuse from Ruby, ending up disabled. At the graduation party, Ruby showed up with my disabled daughter and a DNA test report. She said, "The hospital switched our kids back then. It's time to exchange them back." With a faint smile, I replied, "All right." Mom had brought over a bunch of fresh veggies she grew herself from the countryside. "I brought some over for you and Katie." Ruby's voice came from outside the door as usual. Ever since I'd taken her daughter home, she always found excuses to come by. She'd say she wanted to discuss parenting tips, or she wanted the kids to meet more people for better social skills. She even knocked on our door in the middle of the night, worried after a nightmare about Katie. My husband Harris often complained, saying Ruby spent more time at our place than her own home. To make visits easier, Ruby even rented an apartment in our neighborhood, claiming that family should stay close and keep the bond strong. I knew she just wanted to keep an eye on her daughter Katie, but I never called her out. I opened the door as usual. She was wearing a fancy dress and carrying a basket of veggies. Behind her was a poorly dressed, skinny little girl, my daughter. Ruby named her Lily. As soon as she came in, Ruby set the veggies down and rushed over to Katie. "Katie, it's your birthday tomorrow. What do you want for a gift? I'll get it for you." She stroked Katie's head gently, and the affection was all over her face. Katie smiled sweetly, saying, "Anything you get, Katie will like." Hearing that, Ruby's smile grew wider. Katie is so sweet and smart, unlike my useless kid who's dumb as a rock. She shot a nasty look at the girl by the door, before pulling her in by the ear. "Get in here already. Standing at the door like a guard dog? Who taught you to be such a disgrace? Just looking at you gets me pissed off." She slapped her daughter to the ground in front of me. My daughter hit her head on the coffee table, leaving a gash that bled. Katie was startled, but Lily didn't cry or complain. She just got up, used to it by now, and wiped the blood off her forehead. She timidly apologized. "I'm sorry, Mom. I know I was wrong." Apologizing after being hit had become a routine for Lily through the years. It had happened countless times before. Harris jumped up, grabbed the first aid kit, and started tending to Lily's wound. He angrily scolded Ruby, "Ruby, how can you hit your own child so hard? No matter what, she's still your flesh and blood. Don't you care?" Ruby shrugged it off. She was born a piece of trash. "She's so dumb, can't hold a candle to Katie. I'm just surprised I haven't beat her to death yet." Ignoring her daughter, Ruby smiled contently at Katie, complimenting her. "Katie is remarkable. Great grades, sweet nature. She's just delightful." Hearing this, Harris sighed. "Children need patient nurturing," he advised. "Look at Annabelle, she never yells or hits our girl. She raises Katie with love and care. And that's why Katie turned out so well. You keep berating Lily, not surprising she's struggling." Ruby smirked. "Katie's got excellent genes. My useless kid just got the short end of the genetic stick. I must have done something horrible in my past life to get stuck with her." Then Ruby turned to Katie with a soft voice. "Katie, I've ordered your favorite Elsa princess cake. I'll bring it tomorrow for your birthday." "Thank you," Katie responded politely, her usual reaction to Ruby's favoritism. Lily, mustering her courage, spoke softly to Ruby, "Mom, tomorrow is my birthday too. Could I get a new pair of shoes?" I glanced down and saw Lily wearing worn-out sandals, the soles completely worn down. They were Katie's from last year. Ruby decided Lily should wear Katie's discards, and she had worn them all year round. Even in the dead of winter, her feet were swollen with frostbite, but she wore the same sandals. "Trash like you suits broken shoes. A birthday? You think you deserve it?" With that, Ruby started beating on Lily again. Yelling and crying filled the room. I watched it all in silence, saying nothing. Harris tried to intervene. Even Katie joined in to help stop it. Ruby, maybe afraid of scaring Katie, roughly dragged Lily out of our home. The next day was Katie's birthday. Ruby couldn't wait to come over with gifts and cake. Harris was puzzled to see her alone. "Where's Lily? It's her birthday too. Why isn't she here?" Ruby answered indifferently, "Oh, I broke her leg last night. She's still knocked out. Her voice was careless and she even had a smug smile, as if breaking her daughter's leg was something to be proud of. Ignoring Harris's shocked expression, she squeezed in with the gifts and cake and set them before Katie. Katie, darling, today's your day. I won't let any bad luck spoil it for you. When Katie took the gifts, I noticed a small cut on her hand. Ruby's face turned stern. She scolded me, Annabelle, what are you doing? How did Katie get hurt? I stayed calm. Kids get into scrapes. Your daughter's always covered in bruises, isn't she? Ruby, furious, shouted, that trash can never be compared to Katie. Katie is. Realizing she was being too emotional, Ruby stopped abruptly, then continued more calmly. I mean, Katie grew up pampered way better than Lily. You really need to take good care of her. Hearing this, Harris scoffed. You have the nerve to say that? If you hadn't been pounding on your daughter here yesterday, leaving blood everywhere, Katie wouldn't have felt the need to help clean up and hurt her hand. Ruby looked to Katie, confirming, Katie, is that true? Katie nodded. Yes, I just wanted to help out. Ruby, with a tinge of sadness, advised, you don't always have to be so responsible. Leave the rough tasks to your parents. Your main duty here is to enjoy life, got it? She quickly threw herself into planning Katie's birthday, handling everything from cooking to decorations. Once everyone had their fill, she eagerly asked Katie, what's your wish? I'll make it happen. Without hesitation, Katie replied, I want to get into Cambridge. Ruby, stroking Katie's head, assured her, I can't help with that, but with your smarts you'll definitely get in. And when you do, I'll have a surprise you'll never forget. Looking into Ruby's eyes, filled with overflowing affection, I barely suppressed a smirk. An unforgettable surprise, maybe? Oh, my dear Ruby, I've prepared one just for you too. Every year, Ruby is more enthusiastic about Katie's birthday than Harris and I. Ever since my daughter's leg-breaking incident, I haven't seen her. Whenever Harris asks about her, Ruby grimaces. Don't mention that miserable brat to me. Just thinking about her gets me mad. Because Ruby deliberately avoided the subject, I didn't see my daughter again until Katie topped the college entrance exam and got into Cambridge. During the celebration dinner I hosted for Katie, Ruby came into the banquet hall, leading my limping daughter. She handed me a pre-prepared paternity test report in front of friends and family. Annabelle, Lily's been having health problems lately. I took her to the hospital and found out she isn't my daughter. Years ago, the hospital mixed up our babies. Lily is yours and Katie is my biological daughter. Now that our children have been separated for so long, it's time I reunite with my biological daughter. The kids must be switched back. As she spoke, Ruby squeezed out a couple of tears, staring deeply at Katie with a mix of love and regret. As if over the years she was a victim who had endured endless hardships. The room buzzed with shock. The couple worked hard to raise such a successful college student, and now they have to hand her over? Everyone knew how much Annabelle sacrificed for Katie. Her topping the college entrance exams is all thanks to Annabelle's guidance. Years of effort and emotion can't just be erased. Exactly who could give that up? If it were me, I'd definitely refuse. One is an 18-year-old, smart and well-behaved top college exam student. The other a disheveled, scrawny disabled child who can barely walk. Anyone would be more inclined toward the former. However, amidst the chatter, I smiled subtly and said, fine. Since it was mixed up, they should indeed be switched back. My words stunned everyone. Ruby, eyes wide in disbelief, seemed to have not expected me to agree so readily. Even Harris couldn't believe it, looking at me with surprise. Annabelle, have you lost your mind? You're going to give Katie to her based on Ruby's claim and a paternity test that might not even be real? My mother-in-law urgently added. Yeah, Annabelle, this is a big deal. How can you make such a decision without a proper investigation? Facing their doubts and objections, I simply said, Katie is indeed her child. Back then, I saw with my own eyes the children being switched. The room fell silent in shock. Harris, feeling panicked, shouted, No way, you were always weak and you nearly died from bleeding heavily when giving birth. You said this child was more important than your own life. How could you just watch as she was switched and mistreated? You're lying, right? I looked at Harris seriously. During childbirth, I saw a red butterfly birthmark on our child's waist. If Lily is our daughter, you'll see it. After I said this, my mother-in-law immediately checked her daughter's waist. Seeing the red butterfly birthmark on my daughter's waist, Harris's eyes turned red. He quickly approached me and slapped my face harshly. Annabelle, are you even human? You knew the truth all along, yet you didn't say anything. Why did you let our daughter suffer with Ruby for so many years? Usually gentle and mild, Harris hit me for the first time. He was really furious. Other relatives also condemned me. Is Annabelle out of her mind? This child is a descendant of our family, her own daughter, and she watched her be mistreated without doing anything. She's a heartless creature. Knowing this was her child, she let her be beaten, live years worse than death. Harris, divorce. A woman like her doesn't deserve you. The accusations came non-stop, and everyone looked at me with contempt and loathing. Even the timid and weak Lily with tears in her eyes accused me. I hate you. I'll never acknowledge you as my mom. With that, she turned around and jumped out of the window behind her. The loud thud from downstairs shocked everyone. Tears unknowingly flowed from my eyes. All the wrongdoing finally coming to an end. After a brief panic, everyone in the banquet hall rushed downstairs. Harris gave me a furious glance before stumbling down the stairs. I quietly took out my phone, dialed the police. Hello, I'd like to report my daughter was driven to jump off a building. Hanging up, I wiped away my tears and slowly went downstairs. The hotel downstairs was crowded. My daughter lay silently in a pool of blood. Harris kneeled beside her body, crying in devastation. Other relatives gathered around, wiping away tears silently. Seeing me approach, everyone turned their eyes on me uniformly. Anger, disgust, contempt, hatred, all of it uncovered. You murderer! How dare you come here? If it weren't for you, your daughter wouldn't have suffered so much and wouldn't have taken her life out of despair. You're worse than the abuser, knowing the truth yet doing nothing. The crowd, filled with righteous anger, hurled insults at me. My mother-in-law pointed at me and yelled, "Why isn't it you that got hurt? Why didn't you die?" Amidst their harsh curses, the onlookers who were initially confused gradually pieced together what had happened. When they learned I had watched my daughter be abused for 18 years and did nothing, more malice came my way. Insult upon insult. Some street vendors even threw eggs and rotten vegetables at me. Everyone was emotional, calling me unfit to be human. There were quite a few people filming me broadcasting live, spreading everything I'd done online widely. Look at this woman, she's disgusting. She saw her own daughter being switched, and she said nothing, taking home someone else's child. She stood by while her own daughter got the wrong treatment, was abused, had a broken leg, and she didn't stop it. She could have stopped all of this, saved her daughter with just a word. But she didn't. What was she doing? Busy raising someone else's child. Even helping the one who abused her daughter raise a top exam student. And her own daughter couldn't bear the truth, jumped to her death. Her own child jumped, and she acted indifferent like nothing happened. How can there be such heartless people in this world? The live streamer painted a vivid picture of everything happening, moved thousands of netizens. People were on the internet slamming me like crazy. Damn, does this woman have a screw loose? Why treat her own daughter like that? Yeah, what did her daughter ever do wrong to deserve all this suffering? The only wrong she did was being born to a heartless beast of a mother. Can't someone at the scene just beat her to death already? I've had enough. Amidst the endless insults, my photos got spread all over the internet. They turned into black and white memorials, scrawled with the vilest curses. At this moment, everyone wanted me to just drop dead on the spot. And as all eyes blazed with hate, I walked over to Ruby. Ruby tried to act calm, speaking harshly. Annabelle, I always treated you like my own sister. Even though I thought Katie was your daughter, I treated her better than my own child. For you and Katie, I've given my heart and soul for 18 years, given up everything. I've even neglected my own child. You knew our daughters got switched, so why didn't you say anything? Why did you hog my daughter, keeping me and Katie apart for 18 years? You almost tore two families apart. Do you even realize that? Ruby was smart. Even now she kept up the act. Even though my daughter's bruises were her doing. Despite her orchestrating the whole thing, she still played the innocent victim, pinning all the blame on me. I looked at her blankly. Ruby, don't pretend. Isn't this what you wanted all along? Hearing this, Ruby's eyes betrayed a moment of panic, but she quickly regained her poise, retorting boldly, Stop slandering me. By smearing me, do you think you can clear your name? Annabelle, no matter how you twist it, you're the one who pushed your own daughter to the brink. Ruby's words were met with heads nodding all around. People started pointing and glaring at me, angrily asking why I kept silent, questioning why I watched my daughter suffer for years. Before I could speak, police sirens approached quickly. The police arrived, assessed the situation, then addressed Ruby and me coldly. You two, come to the station for questioning. I spoke slowly, seriously. No need to bother. I'm willing to confess everything here. Seeing my cooperation, the police didn't push. While noting things down, they asked me, when and where did you see your daughter switched? I came clean. It was 18 years ago, the day I gave birth at the maternity hospital. That night, I accidentally saw a sneaky nurse switching my daughter with Ruby's. Hearing this, the police frowned. And then? I glanced at Ruby, continuing. Then I followed the nurse, saw her swapping the babies, then whispering with Ruby in the hallway, saying it was done, telling Ruby to relax. Hearing this, Harris's eyes burned with fury at Ruby. The place buzzed with whispers. So it was all Ruby's plan? No wonder she treated Lily so harshly for years. She'd known Lily wasn't her daughter. This vile woman, how dare she bully an innocent child so brazenly? Harris shook with rage, glaring back at me, demanding, Annabelle, if you knew it was Ruby's doing, why didn't you speak up? Why let her torment our daughter for over a decade? You had countless chances to stop it, to reveal all of it. Harris was shouting, losing it. I held his gaze, didn't reply. Even the police seemed puzzled, asking me, since you saw it all, why didn't you stop it back then? And why keep silent afterward? I paused and said, because the time wasn't right. The police raised their brows. What makes the time right? I looked around at all the hateful eyes and all the live streaming cameras. The situation was big, really big. So I faced the police and said firmly, now it's the right time. I turned to Ruby, asking deeply, we grew up together. I always saw you as a sister. I treated you better than myself. Why do you hate me so much? Ruby scoffed, sneering. Annabelle, what I hate most is your holier-than-thou attitude. Am I not as good as you? Why, when we grew up together, do I always have to be in your shadow? Why does everyone always focus on you? Why do you get to marry rich, have a husband who loves and dotes on you, while I just stay in your shadows, unnoticed, unloved? Why? Ruby screamed, more and more unhinged. Her eyes burned, chest heaving, clearly bitter for a long time. Seeing this stranger in front of me, my heart ached. Just for those reasons. Ruby took a deep breath, speaking harshly. Isn't that enough? In this life I haven't lived as well as you. But my daughter was cherished by you, growing up in luxury, adored. While your daughter barely survived with me. Used and abused like a dog. Everything she had was my daughter's cast-offs. Every time your daughter treasured Katie's leftovers, I felt joy. At this, Ruby laughed again, as if releasing years of humiliation. Seeing this, Harris roared at Ruby. Ruby, you ungrateful woman. Annabelle always thought of you, sharing everything she had, worried you'd suffer. And over your envy, you tortured our daughter? Are you even human? Harris was livid. He lunged at Ruby in rage. If not for the police, he might have torn her apart. The crowd's emotions erupted too. Everyone was cursing Ruby. And live stream comments were flying. She's the textbook toxic relative, doing nothing but envying and holding others back. I worked at a luxury store where those sisters shopped. Ruby loved everything. Annabelle didn't hesitate to buy her whatever. Because I admired it, I even recorded a video and shared it online. The comments were all about their sisterly bond. Yeah, I remember watching that video. I was so jealous, wishing I could have such a generous bestie. Some people just don't get what gratitude means. Someone so good to her, and that's how she repays them? In no time, everyone turned against Ruby. But she didn't care one bit. She looked at Harris and said sarcastically, yelling at me won't help you. How is your wife Annabelle any better than me? Even a tiger wouldn't harm its own cub. Yet as a mother, she swallows the truth and lets me bully your daughter. So tell me who's really worse here? Just those few words from Ruby changed the crowd's mood once more. All eyes turned to me, full of anger. Harris looked at me, confused. Annabelle, I know you and Ruby are close, but our daughter. She's gone because of her. Let go of this shallow friendship already. Just be straight with me, did Ruby threaten you all these years? Or is there something else? I just need to hear the truth. You risked your life for our daughter. I refuse to believe you'd watch her suffer all these years. My mother-in-law chimed in teary-eyed. Yes, Annabelle, you've always been such a kind-hearted child. What made you change so much? Looking at Harris, full of confusion and desperation, I couldn't help but scoff. I flatly said, Harris, don't tell me you have no idea why I did what I did. Hearing this, Harris was visibly taken aback. He looked at me, puzzled. What do you mean? Did I do something to upset you? Haven't I always treated you well all these years? Everyone knows how much I love you. Just tell me if I did something wrong. I'll apologize and make it right. Why let our daughter suffer like this? She's innocent. Harris spoke with such pain. His eyes filled with disappointment and sadness as if his heart was betrayed. I stared at him, icy cold, and replied, Stop pretending, Harris. Do you remember what you were doing the night our child was switched? My words made Harris's face change instantly. Fear flickered in his eyes, but he quickly regained his composure, defending himself. Of course I remember. I was at the hospital by your side day and night. That evening I was just too exhausted and took a brief rest. Are you really holding that against me? Listening to his pitiful excuses, I couldn't help but let out a mocking laugh. He was so good at acting, so believable that I didn't see through him for so long. During those days in the hospital, Harris did as he said, pushing off work, staying by my side. He was so caring, watching every detail as if afraid he might overlook something. Even the small act of bringing water to my lips spoke volumes. I was grateful back then, believing I had found the perfect husband. His tender care touched me deeply. The day I gave birth, I had a nightmare about Harris being in trouble. Waking up to find him gone, I was worried. Ignoring the pain, I got out of bed in search of him. But just a few steps out, I saw something I could never unsee. Remembering that scene brought a bitter smile to my face as I turned to Harris. Yeah, you went for a rest. But it was with the woman you truly love, right? Despite trying to keep up the act, Harris's face went pale immediately at my words. He stammered. What nonsense are you talking about? You're my one true love. I don't even look at other women. There's no one else I care for. Seeing him still pretend, I decided to lay it all out. If you've forgotten, let me refresh your memory with some help. With that, I pulled out my phone and played a video for everyone to see. The footage was grainy but showed Harris beside a hospital bed holding hands with a woman who resembled me. With raw emotion, Harris confessed, Kathy, I'll never betray you. Annabelle's just a stand-in. She can never replace you. I've stayed by her side for our child to be born safely. She had complications during birth, but the baby is fine. At least she served that purpose. Don't worry, the kid is our IVF baby. You're always the mother, and once you're better, I'll divorce Annabelle, and we'll be a happy little family. Witnessing that nearly took my breath away. I never expected the man who claimed such deep love for me only saw me as a stand-in. And the child I risked everything for wasn't even mine. It was laughable. The happy life I thought I had was a complete sham. It all made sense now. It explained why Harris was so eager to pursue me back then. Why he always gave me things that weren't really me, changing my style altogether. It was clear. He only saw me as a vessel for his child. At that moment my body hurt but my heart hurt more. But I didn't expose Harris then. After recording I walked away, enduring post-birth pain, pacing the hall for a long time, accepting my truth. When I decided to leave, I accidentally saw a nurse switching the babies. So I let it happen, said nothing, and waited to see what fate had in store for everyone involved. For 18 years I held back, observing everything. Watching Harris cherish Katie, while Ruby abused his biological daughter right in front of him. I couldn't help but wonder, if Harris discovered the truth, what would his reaction be? Today I witnessed it. Everyone did, the crowd, the online viewers. Harris, enraged, stared at me and said, You knew all along? And never said a word? I met his gaze, unfazed. Yes, I wanted to see you all destroy each other. To watch you reap what you've sowed. Harris was furious, his eyes red with anger, screaming, Annabelle, you witch. You've doomed Kathy's daughter, I'll kill you. Suddenly, Harris charged at me like a madman. But the cop next to me was quick and blocked him instantly. Harris glared at me. full of resentment, yelling wildly. Kathy was my one and only, and her kid was my life. Being a mother to Kathy's daughter is a blessing. Why won't you appreciate that? Why did you have to kill her? Harris screamed and struggled, his eyes burning with rage, like he wanted to swallow me whole. I looked at him, calm and steady, and said, "How did I harm her? I didn't do anything, did I? The real person who hurt her is you. You tried to use me to bring a child into this world who shouldn't have been here. But because of that, she bore consequences that weren't hers. All this is your doing. In the end, your child was just paying for your karma." My words hit him like a bolt of lightning. Harris went from furious to stunned in an instant. His eyes widened, his face went pale as he looked at me. He seemed crushed, slowly collapsing to the ground. "No, it's impossible. How could I harm my daughter? She was Kathy's child. I just wanted a future with Kathy." As he spoke, Harris's voice stopped abruptly. Tears started sliding down his face. He looked dazedly at his daughter's body on the ground and cried, "I killed my daughter. I killed Kathy's child." In the end, Harris got up like a madman, stumbling out of the crowd. Ignoring everyone, he kept shouting, "I'm a sinner. I killed my child. I'm a sinner." Everyone watched him leave, listening to his cries grow distant. Harris was lost. Seeing all this, Ruby laughed in satisfaction. She looked at me smugly and taunted, "Annabelle, you're so pathetic. Your husband's heart belongs elsewhere. Those two kids have nothing to do with you. This time, Ibun." She laughed heartily, thinking she had the last laugh. But eventually, Ruby was sentenced to prison for child abuse. Before going to prison, she requested to see Katie. But Katie refused, only sending a message. "I don't have a mother as cruel as you. I never want to see you again." Those simple words struck Ruby hard. She clutched the letter, staying dazed in herself for an entire day. Unable to handle the blow, she lost her mind and took her life. I, on the other hand, left that heart-wrenching city. On the plane, I spotted a familiar face. It was Katie. She walked over with a smile and said slowly, "Mom, you're the only one I'll ever call Mom. Thank you for raising me for 18 years. From now on, let me take care of you."